He changed my life like water into wine. That's the spiritual hope for most human beings, that our lives will have zest and energy and effervescence to them, that they will not be something that just feels like they've run out of steam. Organizations want that as well. Climate change people want that as well. They want to be able to look at the world and to see that positive change is happening, and that there's an energy and a power in the way forward. So we've been looking at this story of Jesus turning water into wine, and we've been looking at it as a metaphor, not as a miracle that Jesus could uniquely do, but as a metaphor, as a process in which we ourselves can also, by following and applying this spiritual process, that we can turn the water of life into the wine of life. So the process is a kind of three-step process. The first step is to recognize that our energy, our wine, our enthusiasm, or the enthusiasm of some body has run out of energy, has run out of steam, no longer has a sense of purpose and energy to it. And that's the first step that we hear in this parable. The host of the party, he's run out of wine and he doesn't know what to do. He kind of keeps it a secret. But somehow, Jesus' mother hears about it, and she goes to her son because he's very creative and imaginative, and he can actually bring energy, bring zest to what's happening. He has that gift to see with new eyes. And so the second step is Jesus looks around and says, what's here? What have we got that we can use so that we can have a new flow of energy? And he spots these big urns of water. They've been set aside for the rite of purification. And Jesus says, and he gives a signal to people, you know what? This rite of purification is not going to be part of the new order. Everybody's going to be pure. Everybody's going to be clean. We're not going to identify people in those kind of ways. And so he took those jars that were set aside for one purpose and he repurposed them. And out of that repurposing came the new wine of life, a renewed energy at the party. People were amazed. They said, whoa, usually people save the best, use the best at the beginning. And then when people wouldn't notice, they have the bad stuff. But you've actually saved the best for last. And so it is in the third step of the process of spiritually renewing our lives, our communities, the world we live in. That the third stage is once we repurpose and see and use differently, we discover that there is renewed energy, that something has changed for the positive, for the best. Follow the energy. It's a message that comes loud and clear in this passage. find the path forward that will lead to renewed life and living. Parker Palmer is a Quaker, and he's an educator. And he writes several books. He's written several books, and in some of them he's chronicled about the lifelong depression that he lived with. And he would have severe bouts of depression. And he was on medication for depression. He also had a therapist who he would go to try to find his way forward, because what he had been doing wasn't working. And somehow he needed to change things to find renewed purpose, renewed energy, renewed life. And he told the story of he had his eye on a job, and the job he thought would be perfect for him. And it was a time he knew that what he was doing, he had really done his best at, and it was time for someone else with new skills to come onto the scene. And so he knew that was winding down. And he applied for and was interviewed by this college to get this new job, and he didn't get it. And that threw him into a tailspin. It discouraged him, and he spent a lot of time saying, like, what did I do? Was it in the interview? What did I do wrong? Why didn't I get it? Am I not good enough? And so he did a whole number on himself. And he went to the therapist, and week after week he would say, like, what's wrong with me? My life it's derailed, it's stalled. How am I going to make my contribution? The doors have closed. Well, the therapist did their best to re-image what was happening. And this one day, the therapist said, you know, a closed door also helps you find your way. Because you will not be traveling that way. And the more time and energy you spend thinking about the way that you will not travel, the less time that you spend thinking about the way you will travel. What doors are now open, are still open? Where are the possibilities? Don't look backward at what can't be, but look forward. And as Parker Palmer started to say, okay, what else is out there? As he got up the energy to phone colleagues and say, I want to find a way forward, as opposed to what he had been doing in bemoaning what he didn't get. His colleagues started to look out for him. And one day somebody said, you know, there's a job that might be interesting to you. It's not what you've been doing before, but it is something that I think you would be good at. And so he started to apply. He applied to that job, and he started to apply to other jobs. And as he began to think, what door will open to me? And began to leave the closed doors as finished and over, he had energy for the search. And he found a door that opened to him, and for the next 8 or 10 years, he made a significant contribution in a way that he hadn't imagined he would be able to make it. He found the path to new wine, to new energy, to new purpose. That's, I think, what this parable is doing, is saying to us today. Don't spend our time hiding that we've run out of energy, that we've run out of zest, that we've run out of purpose. But rather, let somebody like Jesus' mother know, who will help and start to find the resources for the new life that will be coming. I've told you before, and it's a story that I often think about myself, and of the two women that I visited who lived in the same condo building in North Vancouver. They both moved to this condo building, which was on the corner of two very busy streets. And I went to visit the first woman, and her windows looked out on the one side of the street, one busy street, and she said, "I had no idea it would be this noisy. It's so busy. I just hardly want to look out at my windows. And the fire department is right there. And when their trucks leave, they blow their sirens, and it wakes me up, and oh, what a place I'm living in." And so at the appointed time, I finished with my tea in that visit, having tried to cheer her up as best I could. And I went at the appointed time to the second visit. And the woman had two scanners going. And she had a police scanner and a fire scanner. Both of which were on these streets. And during our visit, she'd pop up to listen. She'd say, "You know, I could see as soon as I moved in here that I either had to find a way to live with the noise and the sirens and the energy of the police being on one street and the fire on the other, or," she said, "I'd drive myself crazy. So now I have a scanner, and when I hear the fire go," she said, "I send a prayer with those who are the firefighters, that they will be safe and that they will make safe in whatever situation they find themselves. And when the police scanner goes, I say a different kind of prayer for our world, for how we live." She said, "You know, my life is so full. I have to read the paper because then I find out what the call was about." She said, "You know, often my family calls me and they say, 'Well, what's going on today, Mom?'" You see, if it's taken you down, if life is getting you down, that's the time to just say, "Okay, I'm in this process." Step one is to recognize I'm running out of energy and enthusiasm for life. And step two is to say, "Okay, what can I use to turn this around? Who can I talk to?" And step three is to live into the changes, even if it's something you never imagined you would do. This week, on Thursday night, I went up to First Memorial, and they had an educational evening on Alzheimer's and what's happening with Alzheimer's here in Victoria. and some of the takeaway messages that they had. Don't keep it hidden. Don't let shame or how it'll look or anything silence you, keep you hidden. Instead, check out what are the resources that are now available to support families and individuals who are struggling with Alzheimer's and with dementia of various forms. Join a support group, both the caregiver and the person with the Alzheimer's or dementia. Talk to your friends. Tell them what's going on. Invite a community to support you. And then don't live in the future, but live in the day that you have. Make the decisions about how you want to live, knowing that it will often be out of your control. Have the life that is possible for you. One of the people, there was two couples who talked about how they were facing the Alzheimer's of one of the partners in their marriage. And one of the fellows said, one of the things I can do is I go into respite willingly. Because I know my partner needs it. I know she needs to keep on doing things. He said, so while I can, I do that. And I try to tell jokes. We all have this spiritual choice to try to reach out and claim the energy that comes with renewing our lives, doing things differently, looking at the resources we have, including the closed doors, and saying, okay, I'm going to make the changes because having a positive, productive, or meaningful life is really, really, really important. Well, this is the last Sunday on the Water into Wine. But it's not your last opportunity, because you always have the opportunity to create more wine, more living energy, more hopefulness in your own lives. May it be so, and thank you for listening. Amen.